180 miles from Chicago is a small town in southwest Wisconsin called Platteville. A mining boom in the 1820s brought hundreds into the area. Since then, Platteville has prided itself as a family-friendly city and proud of their education, especially at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville. The school has not only been the home for students and professors for nearly 150 years, but was once the summer home for an NFL team.
Platteville was pretty much a typical rural university community. Great place to live, nice people, super friendly.
It was a nice, lazy summer during Platteville and quiet. We had our tourists that come to the mining museum.
Pretty small town USA. I mean, you had people coming through. We have a few tourist attractions, with the mining museum and some other stuff, and there's very excellent fishing around Platteville.
But for the most part, it was quiet.
It's still a good place to live and raise a family.
Much like the lead mining in the 19th century, Platteville was on the brink of experiencing another event that would bring thousands flocking into town, this time in the form of a football team across the border, the Chicago Bears.
They contacted us, and then they had one of their coaches come and visit all 7 schools. And then they picked 3, and we were one of those 3. They wanted some rural, so when they landed in Dubuque at the airport, we took them on all back roads to get to Platteville so that they really thought they were out in the boondocks. They liked what they saw, they liked what they heard, and they ended up coming here.
The Bears would track up north to train in a town of 2,000, much different from a city of 3 million in 1984.
My initial reaction was one of, oh my gosh, little Platteville is going to do that? These big teams are actually going to come here.
When my food director told me that we were going to be hosting the training camp for the Chicago Bears, I was very, very excited. Never in my wildest dreams as a food service administrator did I think that I would be feeding an NFL football team.
While some were glad for the Bears coming to Platteville, there were some questions raised from Wisconsin's diehard football fans and the Bears' most notorious rival.
Initially, there was some, why would you ever want to bring the Bears here? They're the Packers' worst rival.
How are people going to perceive them? Because this is Packer country. But we also have a lot of Bears fans in the area. Even before the Bears came, there was a lot of Bears fans.
Packer Bear fans are huge rivals, so there were your vocal Packer fans that, oh, this is nuts, why don't we bring the Packers here, and why the Bears, and things like that. But I think some of them deep down were pretty excited just that an NFL team was going to train in this area.
At first I was a little bit leery, but when you start meeting people and you start knowing who they are and so forth, my allegiance turned over to cheer obviously for the people that I knew.
It was questionable. We knew that, when we decided to do it, but we also knew the people of Platteville that they'd be very accepting and welcome them.
Platteville seemed to be the right fit for the monsters of the Midway, despite being behind enemy lines, ushering in a bright future for the small town.
They came here on a 1-year contract. We had to perform or they wouldn't have been back, and we must have done a decent job because they came back for 17 more years after that first year.
In those first few years, I was busy doing other things, but it was pretty obvious to me that when the team was playing here, our community took on a very different look. There were so many people here. In the very first years, there were tens of thousands of people that came to Platteville during the course of 5 weeks. And it did change a lot.
When the Bears started coming to town, we started drawing, upwards of 1,000 fans. 100,000 fans this summer. That kind of changes your community. We had a lot of people that started up their own little businesses. Our businesses in town grew.
Then after they did so well, that fan base increased. For just about every day, we probably averaged 600 to 700 people every day. And of course, the scrimmage game was huge. I mean, there were just a lot of people here, probably 7,000 to 8,000 people.
The Bears of the 1980s were on the verge of something great, led by head coach Mike Ditka and future Hall of Fame running back Walter Payton.
The summer before they won the Super Bowl, of course, the crowds picked up a lot.
I think the Bears players coming in '85 was they thought thought they had something special. They were on the verge. They felt they had a pretty good draft.
You could just sense the electricity in that training camp, that this was a team that was going to gel.
They knew that they were good offensively. They knew they were good defensively. Both units had a lot of pride and took a lot of pride in themselves. And so when practices took place, I mean, it was full bore, and it was manhood to be proved. You know, the offense was better than the defense. So I think practices were very interesting. The preseason games that year were pretty interesting, but nothing really started happening until they got into the season.
The Bears would finish the 1985 regular season with a 15-1 record and claim the franchise's first Lombardi Trophy in Super Bowl 20. That summer, Platteville welcomed the world champions back.
Well, that was extremely exciting.
We actually had to step back a little bit because it happened so quickly after they had been here. I mean, they started in 1984, in January of 86, they won.
It was complete bananas here. I mean, there were people in our community, we could hardly handle the people because there were so many that would come.
I remember going through the practice field, and it was covered with thousands of people watching the Bears practice, and I mean thousands. There was hardly any seating room.
I'm glad that day ended because it was kind of scary because we weren't prepared for that many people in this town. It was really different for a town of, at that time, about 9,000 people to have 12,000 visitors.
Perhaps more memorable than the victory in the Super Bowl were the players on the team, a cast of characters that were known for their presence off the field as much as their athletic ability on the field, and still praised to this day in Chicago.
All of the players that were here in the 84-85, when I really got to know the players, were probably my favorites. A couple that come to mind, of course, Walter Payton, who was everybody's favorite. He was just a super, super nice guy.
Very personable, talked to everyone, very polite.
Wally was a great guy. I think the world of him. He pulled some pranks when he was here on his teammates and stuff, and even on some of the people that worked in this facility. At about 2 a.m. one morning, the fire alarm goes off, and somebody had put something hot. The sprinkler system started in one of the residence halls, and so he's out there and he's laughing his rear end off, and all these guys are coming out dressed in their skivvies and stuff, and nobody admitted to it, but later we had a little chat, and he said that it was his doing.
Walter was the type of guy that when he got done with practice, he would go down, get cleaned up, come back, and sign autographs for an hour and a half if he had to, 2 hours if he had to. And we really thought that was nice, and so we wanted to honor him because he was so darn good to our staff and so darn good to the fans that came here that we wanted to have that Peyton Park place.
He was a character. He was a great person. I'm assuming the people tell you he was a great teammate. I just enjoyed him as a person, and it was sad that his life was taken so early with the disease that he went through, but he was a great guy.
Known by fans as a gritty, hard-nosed tight end in the 1960s, Mike Ditka served as head coach during the team's early years in Platteville.
I had a very good relationship with Mike Ditka, and yes, Mike was intense, but for reasons. I think that's the way he felt he got the best out of most of his players. Some of it was done intentionally. He wasn't really intense. Other times he got pretty darn intense. You get him away from football, he's one of the nicest people you're going to meet. One of the most generous people you're going to meet. He's always doing things for charity. And he's a real thoughtful, very personable people, cared very much about his players.
Mike was a very straightforward person. If he wanted to tell you something, he told you. If it was a positive something, it would be in it with a smile on his face and he'd be telling you. If it was something he wanted done that wasn't done properly, he'd tell you that in a manner too. The nice part about Mike is, once it got off his chest, it was done.
He was a totally different person. From his meeting with the media, and once he walked into our building, he was, "Hi, how are ya? Did you have a good day?" And he'd talk to our staff. He was just a very nice man.
Nicknamed the Punky QB, Jim McMahon was one of the most unforgettable players on the team.
McMahon, he was character.
Jim was the type of guy that I think got pretty nervous when there were a lot of people around him. And that nervousness ended up in his acting out in manners that probably weren't as acceptable as some as others. But he was a good person. He was good to people. When you're one-on-one with him, he was just as nice as any of the other guys.
The Bears' #1 draft pick in 1985, William Perry, put fear into both offensive and defensive linemen as a defensive tackle as well as a fullback. Perry soon became a fan favorite, known as the Fridge.
The Fridge, when we knew he was coming, we knew he was a big guy, and we were told by the trainers that he would be on a special diet when he got here. For the first week, he would have to come to the end of our serving line and ask for me, and we fixed his tray in the back of the kitchen for his meals. And it was just normal portion sizes, but yet that just wasn't enough, and he was a very large man.
With transportation restrictions, players decided to get around campus with mopeds. However, that idea would come to a screeching halt.
You'll see 3 players. I believe it's Dent, Otis Wilson, and somebody else riding a moped, and you can see the tires are about that flat from the 3 guys on it. And so they did some silly things. A couple other guys almost got hit with people opening their cars.
Jim Harbaugh, now the coach of the San Francisco 49ers, they used to run around on these mopeds all the time. But Harbaugh was going to practice one day, and he was going down the street. Somebody opened their car door, and he ran right into the car door. And that was the end of any scooters or mopeds on campus. Ditka wouldn't allow them anymore.
Just as the mopeds were gone from campus, so were the players and coaches who were a part of the Super Bowl shuffling crew. Peyton, Ditka, McMahon, and Fridge were either traded, fired, or retired, and thus brought in a new era of Chicago Bears football, a decade that would see the Bears in the playoffs once after the 1993 season.
Like in any athletic venture, when you're winning, you have a lot more fans, and when you're losing, the fans don't come as much.
Because of the winning, or the lack thereof, and some of the big names leaving, I think some people didn't come anymore. So we noticed we saw a drop in attendance.
There was a little drop off, but there were also peak days, especially weekends. And because the Bears were so friendly and they loved their fans, and the Chicago Bears did not hesitate to not sign autographs.
The true fans didn't stop coming. And that's what was really cool about it. And that's how we built up the relationship that we did. People would be calling. They couldn't wait to know what the dates were. When is your fan day going to be? When do we get to have autographs? When do we get to do this? They were just phenomenal. They've added so much to the history of what I think the memories are of the training camp here.
Basically, I'm here to announce today that the Bears have informed us that they will be seeking new training facilities in Illinois for the summer of 2002. They will be coming back this summer for their 18th season here, training at Platteville. We were extremely disappointed. Don't kid yourself. We didn't want them to leave, but we also understood the politics of the whole situation.
For pretty much everybody that had been tenured as long as I have, and there's several people on the university staff that worked all those years with the Bears, it was very bittersweet. We knew what they were doing. We knew that they really didn't want to go, but we understood the business angle of that, and what can you do with that?
State offered them a pretty good sum of money towards the stadium, and I could only give them $4.27, and that wasn't enough, so they left.
Just like that, the Bears' stay in Platteville would be coming to an end. But the town still had to prepare for training camp that summer. Only this time, it would be a little different in the 18th year.
We sold out of tickets so much quicker because we had a limited number of tickets, and people knew it was going to be the last one.
We put our best foot forward in 2001 because we wanted to make it successful. And then when it was time to say goodbye, it was hard.
We wanted to make sure that the Bears knew we appreciated them being here. I think the Bears wanted us to know that they appreciated their being here.
Coming down to the last few days of camp, some of those guys you weren't going to ever see again, or you didn't think you were going to see again, and so that was very difficult.
It was a great relationship for 18 years. I mean, I really think they were happy here. We were extremely pleased to have them here. But we knew it would end someday. We just wish it would have been 30 years instead of 18.
When they left Platteville, the people that we saw day in, day out, the players, the staff, they really were going to miss not coming back to Platteville. And that was because of the people that worked at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
The Bears left behind a town that they could call home for the summer months before their season. But their legacy can still be found today around the town of Platteville.
People still love the Bears in this town. They could be avid Packer fans, but they still like the Bears because the Bears treated the people extremely well in this community.
A lot of things have happened in the community of Platteville, and I would say the relationship that we built with the Chicago Bears was one of the very best parts.
We still have people that, believe it or not, that go to college at Platteville, that came here as children, that their families came here, and that's how they first saw UWP.
The benefit to it has been monumental, and in hindsight, we have a lot to be thankful to for the Chicago Bears because our community became very different in a very good way.
I think we have more people who visit this area because the Bears were here. And it's something we can hang our hat on, that we did a good job.
When you think back on it, it's one of the very best parts of our history here. Something that everybody in this community should be very proud of.
It really put Platteville on the map. Bears are welcome back whenever they want to come. Maybe next year, huh? No, I doubt it.